All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of Growth Minds. Today we have the real Wolf of Wall Street, Jordan Belfort. Thanks so much for coming on the show.
My pleasure.
So for the small percentage of people, obviously there was an entire movie that featured your story and the ups and downs that came through it. But in your own words, how would you kind of describe in a concise manner the overview of the story that you went through, and just so that we can cover this first before we get through some of the other stuff that you're working on now?
Sure. So basically, at a very young age, in my early 20s, I went down to Wall Street, and I quickly started my own brokerage firm, selling $5 to $10 stocks to the wealthiest 1% of Americans, and no one had ever tried that before. And I invented a system that actually allowed average people to become world-class salespeople. So it was a way of training salespeople. So between those two things, finding this niche in the market, this $5 to $10 stocks to the richest 1%, and then also just teaching people how to close. It was a 1-2 punch that allowed any kid to make millions of bucks a year back in the 80s, when making millions a year, late 80s, early 90s, when making $1 million a year was huge, right?
Oh, yeah.
I was making about 50 million plus a year back then, and everything just went crazy. I was from a poor family, and I just lived out every adolescent fantasy I have while I was still in my 20s, and ultimately I made a very big mistake of smuggling money to Switzerland, which created a money laundering charge. I was trying to evade taxes, and there you go. And I ended up doing some time in jail, and 22 months. And when I was in jail, I started writing this memoir, and lo and behold, this memoir became The Wolf of Wall Street, and it was made into a movie by Leonardo Di Caprico, Marty Scorsese, and it became a huge hit around the world. And to this day, it's still a cult hit that gets watched by pretty much every single kid. Anyone who's under the age of 30 has seen the movie multiple times. So it's a pretty great movie, and it continues to go.
Yeah, I don't know many people that haven't heard about the story. And I feel like it's one of those legacy movies that even with time, it'll kind of age really well. It's just one of those things that It has a really heartfelt story around kind of the comeback and the reinvention that you've done, which we'll go into. 50 million, oh my God. What is that today in today's dollars back in the 1980s?
It's the equivalent, because it's not just the equivalent in terms of inflation, just the fact that no one made that kind of money back then. There were no hedge funds really making money. So like at the high end of Wall Street, you had Michael Milken, who also went to jail, right, a few years before me, and he made about $500 million. And that was just unheard of, Yeah. And other than that, it just wasn't like it is today. You didn't hear about these massive paychecks. So $50 million would have put me one of the top earners on Wall Street and in the country back then. So it was a different world,
That's crazy. And obviously there are people that do this where they launder money in terms of Switzerland. Like what was it about the situation that you were in that made this into more of like more of into like a punishment?
Well, I got caught. I had bad luck. I mean, like the banker that I was using there just coincidentally was the banker for Benihana and the Japanese restaurants.
We've had Stevie Aoki on the show, actually, his dad,
well, his
right?
dad, right? His dad got involved in some stuff, and whether or not, I don't even think his dad went to jail for it, but his dad just got involved with some stuff with offshore boat racing, and somehow there was drug money involved. I don't know, his dad wasn't laundering money or anything. It's just that it was somehow tangentially involved, and they started chasing after him, and then they were trying to get him, and they got the banker, and when the banker was caught in the U.S., he started giving up people that were doing business with this bank. He's like, oh, do you know Jordan Belfort? And there you go. And that's how it started.
Oh, because that would reduce his sentence basically by being able to give up more people.
Yeah, I mean, for everyone in the U.S., it's like, in the U.S. it's very difficult because they say to you, okay, if you cooperate, we'll give you like a year or two. If you don't, it's 30 years. Like everyone cooperates. It's just like, it's very, very common in white collar because the sentences are so long if you don't cooperate and very short if you do. And, no one ends up really getting hurt that badly. I cooperated. I did actually time extra time because I refused to cooperate against a friend of mine, but I gave information. Everyone does in the U.S. It's a very common thing. Even the mob does that. Like you'd say, oh, the mob doesn't talk. Everyone in the mob talks too because they made the laws so punishing here that if you go to trial and you're like done, your life, it's like 30 years. So it's much easier to take a plea, give them the information, and you do a little bit of time. That's what happens. That's how the U.S. works, basically.
Right, because the punishment is just so high that they just try
it's too high. Yeah,
it's insane.
There's no way you can pay. Yeah, it's really insane. So, and I'm not sure I think the banker ultimately, he did about a year or two here, then got deported back to Switzerland. But he gave me up, and he gave up a few other people, and that's how it all started.
Have you talked to him after?
I have not, but I would. I mean, I have nothing against the guy. I mean, he was like, what was he going to do, right? I mean, go through 30 years in jail. And it was like, listen, it turned out to be the greatest thing that ever happened to me. I would have never thought that when it was going on. But I mean, I have the most amazing life now because of all the things that I went through and lost everything and then had to build my life back again. And, and the way in which I did that and the movie it turned my own name into a brand that allows me to really just, make as much money as I want the rest of my life and empower people all over the world with my trainings and teachings and entrepreneurship and sales. So it gives me a really amazing platform. So I'm very lucky. I have amazing fans who love the story. They love the whole concept that it was like, if you want to go out with the boys, you got to wake up with the men. Like we partied hard, but we worked hard. It wasn't just about partying. It was partying hard, but working hard. We did it both, Yeah.
It's amazing. It's amazing the reinvention story that you have. So at this point, what made you trigger that the kind of the idea of wanting to write a book about this and tell your story? Obviously, you knew that it was an interesting story, but what was that process of going through? Did you write the whole thing while you were in jail then?
No. So what happened was I didn't think my story was that interesting. I mean, I knew it was. I mean, I guess it was. I thought it was okay, but when I went to jail, my bunkmate was Tommy Chong from Cheech and Chong. He was my bunkmate. He's a famous actor. And we would tell each other stories at night. And, the third or fourth night, he's like, buddy, I thought you were making this shit up, but my wife Googled you, but it's all true. He goes, you have to write a book about it. Your life is insane. I was like, really? It's like my life. So I didn't realize how crazy it was. He's like, oh my God, if you write this book will be a huge bestseller. I was like, really? He's like, definitely. So I started writing it. And at first I found it difficult to write. Ultimately, I taught myself to write while I was in jail by modeling famous authors like Tom Wolfe and Hunter S. Thompson. And then I wrote about 130 pages while I was in jail, and then I ripped them up. I didn't think they were good enough. When I got out, I started on page 1 again, and I started writing, and I was like, wow, this seems pretty good. And when I sent the pages to an agent, they went crazy for them. And then very quickly after that, the book was sold before it was even written. Like on page maybe 30, it was sold to Random House, and I finished writing the book over that year.
Wow. So initially, you wrote the whole thing just using paper.
I believe it or not, my mother still has it. My mother still has the original manuscript that I the first early pages. They're terrible, by the way. I was just learning how to write, and I didn't really know how. And you could see my writing improve, and it's pretty interesting. Yeah.
You could definitely sell these on NFTs now. You can make a killing with these.
I'm sure I could. Right? I know, right?
That's
crazy,
awesome.
Right?
So now you've gone out. Well, this is one of the things that I'm really curious about, right? So you've had the highest of highs, and then obviously you've had the low parts, and then you went through this process of really reinventing yourself. And one of the things that I really admire about you is that you still seem very self-assured and confident, not just for externally, but you seem to have this inner confidence within you. And this is one of the things that I wanted to talk to you about, because a lot of people, when they start to build their self-esteem around something that is perhaps external or something that they can't really control, the moment they lose it, it's something that just crushes them, right? And a lot of people don't bounce back from that experience. One of the things that I want to talk to you about is I'm curious to know where that confidence for you came from, because it seems like even though you even though you did lose, the kind of the wealth initially that you had, you were able to bounce back and still have that level of confidence in you.
So I think some of it comes to the fact that I knew in my heart of hearts, I knew that I possessed very, very powerful skill sets for making money. Like the actual skills that I have, that I worked hard to perfect over the years. Things like being a world-class closer, negotiator, knowing the rules of entrepreneurship. And also, I have on the mindset side, what's up here, I have the ability, I've trained myself to get myself to do the things I don't feel like doing. I can do them every day. And it's like I can get myself to do the things I know I have to do, even when I don't want to do them. And I think the biggest problem that a lot of people have that are not successful is that in their heart of hearts, they don't really believe they have what it takes to succeed. It's not a fear of failure that stops people. There's always this whole thing, people don't take action because they don't want to fail. I guess that's true. Like, yeah, no one wants to fail. But I think it's really more about that when the average person projects out into the future is, well, I do all the work and I take the risk and I put the money in, put the time in. Can I really see myself succeeding at a high level? And when they run that movie, they don't really see it. They don't believe it. Like they see, I don't really think I'm an influencer or a persuader. I don't really know how to run a business. I don't know about marketing. So it doesn't seem possible. So their brain says, you know what? What's the point of doing it? I mean, what's the point of taking all the risk? What's the point of doing all the hard work if I'm probably not going to succeed anyway? Yeah. In my mind, when I'm thinking about taking a decision, it never, ever occurs to me that I might fail because of me. Like I believe in my heart that I have what it takes to succeed on every level. So it's just about, well, I could be right, I could be wrong, and I'm wrong a lot. I take a lot of chances and I end up being wrong because the idea was flawed or I made an error in somewhere. But I never think it's because I don't have what it takes. So when you have that tacit self-belief in your own abilities, opens the possibility for great things. That's number one. The other side is just knowing your why, knowing, it's a cliche, but, when you truly understand why you want to come back from failure, why you want to succeed. It's a very powerful thing too. So you combine those two things together. It was never a chance that I wouldn't end up wealthy. It was not a possibility. When the judge took my money at my sentencing, and I had this big fine, he's like, usually these fines are symbolic, but he'll pay it all back. He's a earner. Like even the judge said it. Like really? There's no way the guy's not going to just get out and just make a ton of money again. So and everyone in the court was like, yeah, that's true. Even the prior, I guess that's true. It was obvious, right? So but that's not like magic. And I think what people need to understand is that it's not that I'm special. I've worked really hard. Listen, I was blessed with some gifts, no doubt. Natural salesperson, at a very high level, but that can be taught. You can learn that. You can become good enough. So you have what it takes to succeed. But over the years, I've just, I've done a lot of work. I've trained myself to take action, and anyone can do that. Anyone can do that. So, and that's really the things that I teach people when I coach people, when I, whether it's in sales or entrepreneurship, is this idea that, almost all things in life can be learnt and modeled. Now, if I want to become a professional tennis player, well, honestly, I'm never going to be as good as like Roger Federer, or even be able to get a game. I could take lessons from today to the end of my life. I don't possess the natural abilities to be Roger Federer or Rafael Nadal or anyone like that. But I can take lessons and get really damn good and beat any club player. So like the same thing goes, maybe I'm never going to train myself how to code and become Zuckerberg, but I can certainly get good enough that I can hire a Zuckerberg and do exactly. There's nothing holding you back from achieving success. And I think if people start to look at life like that I have the ability to learn what I need to learn, find the people I need to find, know who I need to know, it starts to open up a lot of possibilities.
Yeah. And how do you think you can how do you think people can train themselves, or how do you think you can train themselves and give advice to those people that may not have it? Because obviously you were able to come back because you've already achieved a great level of success initially. So you knew you could do it again. And it was like the self-affirming belief. But initially, how do you get there?
So I think that when I walk around the streets of wherever I am, anywhere in the world, people constantly come up to me. I mean, literally, if I can't walk from here to there without someone, whether it's the gas station attendant, the guy who's working in the hotel, or the person driving in the car next to me, or someone in a restaurant, they want a picture or something. And the one comment they always make to me, more than anything else, is, you changed my life. Thank you for the stuff that you teach me. It really, really changed my life. And it made me understand that I had what it takes. Like, I think that I do that. I know the reason my brand is so strong, why people respect the comeback stories, because a lot of my comeback was based on helping other people become successful. Like most people in my position that are speakers, they never actually were successful in the real world. Like, they kind of like made money selling books and tapes. They never actually did it. They didn't really possess the skills they were teaching people. They became wealthy because they were teaching others. They didn't become wealthy in the real world. So I had that ability of having the people say, wow, he actually did this stuff in the real world. He's a real business person. He understands this stuff. He's not just regurgitating someone else's information and trying to make money. So I think people trust the teachings a lot more from someone like that. And I'm not the only person. There's some great mentors out there. And there are a lot of really bad ones too, but there are a few really great mentors besides me out there. So I think that it starts with this old adage in Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm powerless over drugs and alcohol, right? My life is out of control, and I've lost control, right? It starts with just admitting the fact that, that I don't have all the skills it takes right now to achieve success. It's understanding, getting honest with yourself. The first step is always getting honest. Like, I need help. I want to be rich. I want to be successful. I want to live an empowered life, whatever that means to you. There's no set amount of money or success. It's different to everyone. And right now, I don't know exactly how to do that. I need to find someone to help me do that. There's skills I need to learn, things I need to know. And then you have to seek someone. That's step one. Once you're at step one, you admit to yourself, I need help. I need a mentor. I need to learn stuff. I didn't learn it in school. I wasn't born with it, didn't see it in my parents or where I grew up. That's step one. Without that, it's very difficult to help people because they have no self-awareness. They need help. Yeah. Once someone gets to that spot, and it's pretty common, most people do get to that spot pretty quickly, then if you seek out the right person, it's life-changing for you. And you take the right courses. I remember it's the same thing. Many people had this in school when they were growing up. It was like they didn't really do well in school. Then they had this one teacher that they loved. And this one teacher opened up their eyes to the value of education, and they embraced this one teacher. They got an A in that subject. And for many people, it changed their entire academic career. One teacher influenced their entire life. Yeah. Many people have that. Well, the same thing goes in business. It's just one mentor, one person you see that almost changes your perspective. And it can be just a massive tectonic shift in someone's life. And it happens all the time with me. And no one. For me, I never had that. In other words, for me, I didn't need that because I was one of the rare people. It's a rare thing that I was born with a very, very strong entrepreneurial mindset, a set of beliefs, whatever reasons why, that were very empowering for making money. And I had some very important root experiences at a very young age, which made me think about things in a certain way. Like, I had some huge successes in my teens where I took action on an idea I had, and I made massive sums of money. And that sort of created a way of thinking about being in business for myself and empowerment. And I was blessed with a very, very high level of sales ability naturally. And then I figured stuff out through trial. I didn't have a lot of mentors, but if I could have found one, wow, I would have taken one in 2 seconds. So I just be honest, I didn't have one early on at all. I read a lot of books and stuff, but I didn't have many mentors. If I had some mentors, I probably would have avoided going to jail, because I ended up having the wrong mentor at some point in time who showed me some things that really weren't 100% legitimate. And I always have to be the best at everything I do. So, sure. I was the best at doing that. So
nice. What were you selling when you were young? What was the first thing that you ever sold?
Well, I mean, I was selling shit since I was like 5 years old in lemonade stands and stuff like that. And I had a newspaper route, was knocking on doors at the age of 8. At the age of 10, I was going door to door and selling. I was shoveling people's driveways at the snowstorm. At 12 years old, I was doing magic shows. But that was all minor stuff. At the age of 16, I hit it big for the first time. I was selling ices, blanket to blanket, on a large Jones Beach in New York. And literally the first day I tried this, I made $120 in 1 hour in 1978, which is equivalent to making $400 an hour right now.
Yeah, $500.
And that was the moment that changed my life.
Wow.
That changed my life, that moment. And that first summer, when I was 16, I made about $26,000 in 2 months, far more than my parents made, anyone in my neighborhood made, and I'll never forget that. And that was it. From that moment forward, it never in my life occurred to me I wouldn't be filthy rich. I just knew it. Like I was destined for this stuff, and it was a very strong root belief. And then I trained myself to, like, at 16 years old, no matter how much I didn't want to get out of bed in the morning, I could always get myself to go to the beach. I could always get myself out of bed at 6 a.m. to go down to the ice cream distributor, load up a cooler, and go down to the beach. So there's like those early things that happened in my life, and the payoff was far more than wealth. It was the respect of my friends and the awe of girls that would see me on the beach, and I was the vendor, and I was in great shape, and it just felt so great to get that significance and all these things that happened to me when I was 16, 17 years old. By the time I went to college, it was like, all right, let's get into the real world so I can get super rich. Never thought I'd work for someone else.
Got it. So this is kind of the obviously the motive. Initially, you knew that you realized that you were able to make money, and I guess that provided you independence. And then as you got older, it was the girls, it was the cars, it was the materialistic things that allowed you with money to buy those things. I mean, at this point in your life, once you have now established yourself, I know you have someone in your life as a partner, so it's not like girls is really what's going to be motivating you.
She's from Argentina, by the way. She's from close. She's from right by Brazil. She's Argentinian.
Is she from Buenos Aires?
Buenos Aires. Well, she's originally from Cordoba, but now she lives in Buenos Aires. Now she lives here with me, but if we're engaged. But and she's gorgeous, beautiful girl, and a sweetheart, great. And I've been lucky. I've had many beautiful wives and women throughout the years, and sometimes sweet ones too. She's a sweet one, So I have. So I guess your question is like, what do you do when you get everything you want?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there is a lot of things. It's no doubt that someone that is type A or ambitious is always going to look for more meaning and more things in your life. But yeah, obviously, I guess my question is like, how has that changed over time for you as you started to find more success, and how do you continue to motivate yourself?
So, for me, a big part of this is being right. I love having an idea and trying to make it work, and I don't mind the struggles and the down moments. Like, it's all about the journey for me. I enjoy the journey of entrepreneurship, and at this point in my life, it's like so easy for me to make as much money as I want. It really is. I mean, it's like nothing. It's like literally, it gets thrown when you have a brand like this. It's very easy. So I could theoretically sit back right now and do kind of nothing. I really could, and I make probably $5-10 million a year in my sleep, but that's not fun for me. It's like it doesn't turn me on. I probably go crazy pretty quickly. So I'm constantly looking for businesses to invest in and mostly invest my time. Most of the time I'm trading my time for equity in people's companies. Mm-hmm. I love to consult with entrepreneurs. I do a lot of high level consulting where people pay me a lot of money, on an annual contract, over 7 figures a year, to consult with them and really help them grow their business. That's the stuff I love. And I'm always looking for like the latest, what's the newest idea that I can, really sink my teeth into and help a business grow. Like, I'm getting involved heavily in blockchain right now and cryptocurrency and some technology solutions for selling and all this different stuff I'm always involved in.
Got it. Yeah, I remember one of the biggest pivotal points in my life was the idea where not trading time for money. And it's just like this pivotal thing, because I grew up in a conservative family where my mom's a nurse, my dad is in real estate, and it's not necessarily about, buying equity. People just didn't really understand that, right? Is either be a doctor or a lawyer, all of which you can trade time for money. And it was this pivotal point. And I think a lot of people have a difficult time especially starting out, understanding the power in that, particularly with the exponential growth that you see if you have equity in certain tech companies or certain things like cryptocurrency. I mean, what do you think are some of the misconceptions that people have around money that, it maybe comes natural for you, but as you start to coach and consult and speak around, like what are some of the things that, some of the biggest lessons you've learned about it? Because clearly one thing you know how to do is make money, Jordan.
That's true. One thing I've learned that you can, the hardest working people I know make the least amount of money. Like, it's not about hard work. I mean, you have to work hard as an entrepreneur for a time, but it's not like hard work equals lots of money. Like, people that like punch a clock are working like, oh my God, they work really, really hard. They make almost nothing. So like, to me, there's two ways to get rich in this world. A is to own your own business. That's number one. And that could be a real estate investor like that. So, it doesn't have to be a traditional business, but you have some way of leveraging and buying things and using a leverage to, acquire real estate or invest in the stock market. That's one. Another way, so that's all in being a business owner. And the other way is as a salesperson. So there are some really, really high commission salesperson out there that really can get rich like that and then take the earnings and start investing it and bridging up. I don't think you can. It's very difficult to get rich as a paycheck player. I consult with some lawyers, that clients of mine. They make a lot of money, right? They're in the immigration space. One makes $10 million a year, another makes $5 million a year, right? They do really well. And they had come up with a way of like helping illegal immigrants get their green cards faster, right? Mm. And she was unable to convince anyone to take her up on her offer, and she was making very little money. Then she was in the airport one day and she picked up my book and she started reading my book. Oh my God. And it changed her life. And the next year she made $5 million, and the year after that 10, because at the end of the day, it was the ability to close. That was the skill set that made her rich. So like, yeah, she's a lawyer, but she's a lawyer that knows how to sell. Like, she combines sales with law. Sales would be so like, what I'm saying is like, it's such a crucial linchpin skill, being able to sell, influence, persuade, close the deal, that without it, it's really hard to make money no matter what you do. Mm-hmm. So I think those are the easiest paths. I think that if you want to get rich, thinking that going to a 4-year college and going into an MBA program, that is not a path to wealth for me. I'm not saying it's not a good thing to do. I'm not saying at all, because for some people, it could be a good thing to do. Like, my daughter went to college. She went to college, went to grad school. She's a psychologist. She has a license. She needs a license to do that. That was a great move for her in her career decision. But if you're an entrepreneur, I mean, you don't need to go to college. You just don't. I mean, I would advise you not to go to college if you're an entrepreneur. I think it's a complete waste of time. It's a jerk-off experience, really. I think you're much better off going into the real world and trying to get down into some startups and learn the game and learn what it's really like to get into business. I think college is a disaster that gives people limiting beliefs and sets them up for mediocrity.
Yeah. I guess there is like a segment of people that want to be entrepreneurs. They know that need to be entrepreneurs, and then they figure out opportunities around that. And then I guess there's cases like your daughter who has a special skill. Let's say
that's different. They need to go to college. They should go. That's a great thing. They should go. If you want to be a lawyer, you got to go to college. If you want to be a lawyer, you got to go to college. If you want to be a doctor, you got to go to college. If you want to work if your desire is, I want to work at IBM or so, you got to go to college. But if you want to be a rich entrepreneur, it's the worst place that you could do, I think.
For sure.
I think any of those big tech guys would say the same thing, that they dropped out of college. They're like, fuck this, I'm not staying here anymore, Totally.
And I think even those people that may not, go to school for entrepreneurship, they could, in many instances, leverage their skills to start their own company where they'll have a competitive advantage. Like, let's say mental health is a big thing, and that's something that your daughter can get involved in potentially if that's what she wants to do. So yeah, I think it's not necessarily that, it's just for entrepreneurs, like there's different paths to it.
It's a bad thing in college. It's just not for everyone.
Yes, exactly. So this idea of selling, this is really what you have built your brand around, and it's really how you found your initial success, right? It wasn't necessarily that you had this competitive advantage in terms of the finance world. It was really the secret sauce was selling. and you're now teaching this to other people. And I guess I'm curious to know, when I think of salespeople, you kind of think of some of the other players in the market. I mean, I think maybe some people look and compare you as like the Grant Cardones of the world, or some of the other players in the world. How would you differentiate yourself with some of the other players based on what you're selling now, which is the straight line sales?
Yeah. Other than that, their stuff pretty much sucks, and mine is great. I mean, that's probably the best differentiator. And
I saw your video with Grant Cardone. It was hilarious. Your interview was hilarious.
The guy's a knucklehead, but I know. But listen, everyone steals my stuff, and 90% of the people out there using sales training are stealing my stuff and then repackaging it. Right? There are some good sales trainers out there. I don't want to say I'm the only one. There's no one's got a monopoly on great information. The straight line is special because it's in a different league than any other system out there, because it's just as an end-to-end solution it's honestly just as much as for communication as it is for selling. It's just like how to be an effective communicator. Like I got him Chris Voss on my podcast. I respect a lot. Yeah. He's a former FBI negotiator, very smart guy, right? And there's so many overlaps between the stuff that he teaches from a world of knowledge that came from law enforcement and being a top negotiator at the FBI, and what I do. And he's like, and we're laughing because there's so much nonsense out there. And when you come down to it, it's like, the two of us, our stuff is so closely aligned because there's really only one great truth about communication, and the rest of it's mostly just nonsense. Like there's certain laws of communication. It could be little nuances here and there. I say it's 4 seconds. He said it's 7 seconds, but it's the same stuff, right? And so you have to it's really about like whose style of a legitimate sales trainer. Like there's so many nonsense sales trainers out there that just really are not. All they're trying to do is separate people from their money. That's really what it is, right? And they rely on you got to work hard, But that's not out. That was the big comment with Grant Cardone was bizarre. Was that he's supposedly a sales trainer? He's like, there's no strategy, there's no secret. Just work hard, make a lot of dollars. I'm like, oh, all right, come on, you're an idiot. You're just being an idiot. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So it's like, and then there's a lot of people out there that just teach very watered down versions of what I teach. So for me, listen, I'm fortunate because I have a very different positioning in the market than all of them. And I also have a commercial that plays every single day in every country in the world, where the most famous actor in the world portrays me, and with the best director in the world. So I'm kind of lucky like that. I have an incredibly strong brand, and over time, I mean, it's just the truth has come out. So there you go.
Yeah. And I think when people think about sales, some people may think it's sleazy, or people have a negative connotation to it. So maybe we should just wrap this around and talk about it as social skills and communication, because that's really a layer of selling in many ways. For one, I guess, why do you think most people are so bad at selling?
Well, I think that I wouldn't say most people are so bad. I think that they don't teach selling in school. Brazil, I'm actually doing a course for a Brazilian university right now. This week, I'm actually shooting the course for them. Oh, no way. They're making me teach it for college students. So I think that a very, very small percentage of human beings are born with this ability to know exactly what to say, when to say it, and how to say it in the context of selling. They're natural born closers, and they're very far and few between. And those people are lucky because their internal communications platform, like what they're thinking, is perfectly connected to what escapes their mouth, like tonality, words, and body language. Like what happens with many people is they know what they want to say, and they actually think they're saying it the right way. They just don't realize how terrible they sound to other people. They're almost like tone deaf to their own communication. Like, hey, sound excited. And they start talking, like, that's not exciting. Yes, it is. It sounds like they're half asleep, and they think that's excitement. So like there's a huge percentage of people that don't have a proper internal mechanism that they can't communicate what they're really feeling inside. That's a huge problem for people. Like they're just not wired that way. They're thinking something, they're feeling something. So it's a genuine emotion they want to get out to other people. But when they try to do it, something is blocking it, whether it's limiting beliefs, embarrassment, or just whatever, or pure physical tone deafness. They just think they sound great and don't. Blocks them from being able to communicate in the way they want. Yeah. Language is rich. And part of our language is tonality. The tonalities that we apply to the words that we say, and the body language that we use while we're saying it and while we're listening. So those three components together form communication. And if you have a flawed platform where it allows the words to escape in the right way, but the tonality is conspicuously absent, you're not going to get very far in this world as a salesperson, a communicator, as an influencer, as a negotiator, because people just say you don't sound convincing. You sound like you don't really believe in what you're saying. You don't sound sincere when you actually are sincere. So this notion that sales done properly is manipulative, or it's, you're acting, it's actually not. It's about being congruent. It's about getting across the way you're feeling inside the people, so they understand the way you feel. Not I'm really confident. I'm really, really confident. I'm really sure of myself. And I know this is the best thing in the world for you. You're like, really? You don't sound like it right now. Where it's like, I am totally confident. I am 1,000% sure of myself. And I know it's the best thing in the world for you. You're like, oh, fuck, he must really mean that. Where he used the right tonality. It's just such a huge difference. So without that skill, it's really hard to live an empowered life. Now, there's many points in the continuum. Not everyone sucks that bad. There's people who are amazingly great, the top 1%, the natural born closers. Then there's people who are okay. Then there's people who are kind of bad, and there's those who are terrible. So the point is, the straight line system is wherever you are, it's going to take you up 2 levels. If you're terrible, it'll make you good. If you're good, it'll make you amazing. And if you're amazing, it'll make you one of the best in the world. That's really what it's about.
Yeah, definitely. And I don't think sales is necessarily being a salesperson or anything. It has a negative connotation, but I don't think it is. We've had Robert Greene on the show, and he talks about the fact that everyone, in essence, is an actor in some form. We act differently to when we're with our mom or with our dad than when we're with some of our best friends and we're going out drinking at night, versus when we're talking to our boss or talking to a client. These are all things that we have to make some iterations on. And I think those are important points for people to know. Now, I want to dig deeper, Jordan, into some of the details of what you teach. So one of the things you talk about is first impression. Obviously, that is so important for people when they first make that impression. It's not just for selling, it's just anything, a first date, when you're meeting them at a restaurant, although most of the time it's virtual dates these days, or a client or a boss, anyone it might be. So what are some of the things that you teach? That first 4 seconds you meet them, what are the best ways to make that great impression?
So in those first few seconds, it's mostly about unconscious communication, things that like tonality, body language. Not so much the words that you say, it's how you say the words, how you move your body, how you're dressing, how you appear to someone if it's in person or, in Zoom and they can see you. So it's crucial that you master the art of unconscious communication. That's what happens in those first 4 seconds. The words, of course, matter too. Those are really easy to learn. And then after those first 4 seconds, it's about understand that, whatever first impression you made is just that. It's an impression. It's not set in stone. So you have to be consciously, vigilantly aware that everything you say, you're being judged, how you say it, what you say. But it's really based on tonality and body language.
Got it. And there are things that, particularly with the process of setting up a meeting, is there ways that you can, or are there strategies that you can do before you even meet them that can perhaps increase the likelihood of making a good first impression? And more like sure. A persuasion.
Yeah. Sure. So I have actually invested in a company recently that has technology that does that. So basically what it does is the second if you have a call with someone or a meeting, just put their name in, and it instantly will scrape every bit of their social platforms and come up with a personality profile, a best approach, the types of words that you'd want to say to them, the phrases that they'll connect with, the things that you don't want to do, the do's, the don'ts, the person, and it spits out an opening script basically of like what an opening script would look like for this sort of person.
That's scary.
So that's a huge leap forward, which I'm actually, and it's already, the technology is already out there, and it's really about to go mainstream now. We've been beta testing it. It works amazingly well. We have some huge companies like Oracle's testing it, and we're getting amazing results with it.
What's it called?
Sync Up.
Syncup.com.
Sync Up. Yeah. So you got to just basically give it a few more weeks. It'll be out to the public, and it's just incredibly powerful. And not only that, but also it's automated prospecting tools. So it just allows you to like go. It creates a 500% increase in the amount of people you'll even speak to by auto. It's hard to explain, but it uses AI to basically, organize someone's calls, and it's really powerful stuff. But the best part is it actually tells you about the person you're speaking to, and it's dead on balls accurate. Like, it's really crazy how it does it. But
wow.
We're all out there. We have our digital presence out there, and this AI, finds out exactly what your personality type is, how fast you should speak to this person, what phrases are going to connect with them, what are the things that they're not going to want to hear, and so forth. It's really cool.
That's crazy. Have you been testing this out for podcast guests that you bring on?
No, I don't need to, because see, that's the thing with me. I know instantly. That's the thing about being a world-class closer. Seriously, is like one of the things is like I wouldn't need that. I need the prospecting tool. That's great, because that just increases your efficiency. But I don't need someone to tell me what to say. I can look at someone I hear in an instant. My brain automatically knows, right? But that's really rare. It's very rare that someone's like that. Yeah. And that's, it's an ultra high EQ, and you could teach some of it, but this computer just sort of takes it out of the equation. It's really accurate. It's weird. When I first saw it, I didn't believe it. And I was like, oh my God. I tested it on like 10 people that I knew, and it was really accurate.
It was accurate? Oh my God. That's so freaky. Yeah. It is insane. Well, this will probably lead back to my next question, which is, this is more of a personal question that I have, for us, as we're also looking to raise capital. One of the things that's happening quite often, and this is probably something you've dealt with as well, is people don't give you a direct no, right? They kind of lead you along, and it's not even a maybe. It's more, I'll get back to you later, and sometimes they don't follow
great.
up.
Let me think about it. Sounds really good. Let me think about it.
Exactly.
Yeah. Oh, great. Let me just speak to my wife. Yeah. Wow. Awesome. Yeah. Ooh, yeah.
Yes.
That's what the whole straight line is based on. The principle, the general principle of the straight line is exactly that people don't just say no to you. It would be great if they did. It would be really great if someone said to you, no, I'm not interested, or no, I don't trust you enough yet, or no, I'm not certain enough yet. I don't really know about that. I got to do more research about your product and compare it to others. It'd be great if they said that, but they don't. They say, oh, it sounds good. Let me think about it.
Yeah, and that's the hardest thing to overcome, because they're not being rude, right? It's not a direct no. So you kind of need to follow up with them, but you have this feeling where...
It's easy to overcome if you know the straight line. That was the beauty. The breakthrough of the straight line was precisely that. Like that, it took this whole ridiculous back and forth of salespeople where someone says, sounds good, let me think about it. And you're like, what do you need to think about? It was like nothing. I don't really need to. I was just saying that to be nice. There's people who just say that because it's like an easy way. It's like a socially acceptable way of diffusing the pressure of saying to someone, I don't trust you. Or I don't know I don't think your product is as good as you say it is. I got to check. Like, it's all about uncertainty. They're not certain enough yet, right? And people don't say that because it's kind of like considered to be, wow, that's rude. Like, you don't trust me, it's rude. It's really not. It'll actually be, I don't think it's rude, but that's how we're raised. So there's this inherent dishonesty in communication with salespeople. So the straight line cuts through that by completely deflecting the initial objection. So someone says to me, oh, it sounds good, let me think about it. I'm like, all right. I know the person that means nothing to me. Like, that doesn't mean he needs to think about. Like, I'm like, well, what do you need to think? Is that something I left out? Like, that's the worst thing you could say.
Yeah.
What do you need to think of right now? It's like, it's just dumb. It doesn't work. It just creates a total break of rapport. So like, when someone says to me, let me think about it, I'm like, I understand you want to think about it. Let me just ask you a question. Does the idea make sense to you? Do you like the product? I completely they're like, yeah, it sounds pretty good. Now, it sounds pretty good. It's not like, oh my God, yeah, I love it. Like people don't buy shit when they say it sounds okay. I'm not buying it. So I have work to do. I have to convince someone. I have to resell them on my idea. Very often when you're done making your initial presentation, the prospect's just not convinced yet. They need to know more. It's normal. People don't get convinced all at once. They get to a certain level of certainty. They back off. They get even more. So when someone says they want to think about it, I want to call you back, what they're really saying is, I'm not certain.
Yeah.
I'm not certain about your product, maybe. Or maybe I am certain about your product. I just don't trust you. I don't know you. I've never done business with you before.
Right.
Why is it so much easier to make repeat sales to the same person? Because they trust you now. You've already done business with them. There's a trust factor involved, right?
So the thing is, like, if they don't trust you already, how do you de-risk the chance of them being thrown off or not liking that you're being too pushy, especially when there's not that much trust yet, right? This guy's going to probably think like, oh, like, why is this guy pushing me? I don't even know him or her.
Right. Well, that's another major breakthrough to the straight line is that there's ways to like really quickly establish trust with other people, because like the human brain is really weird. Like we tend to distrust someone a lot more than we should when we initially meet them. And then once we start to trust the person, when we make the decision to trust, we trust them a lot more than we should. The truth typically lies somewhere in the middle. No one's not trustworthy, and no one should be trusted that complete. But the human brain, when that pendulum of trust starts to swing to, wow, I trust you, it swings hard, fast, and completely in a conversation.
Yeah.
So the magic is, how do you get that pendulum swinging in the right direction? Because once it swings, it will swing fully. People don't kind of trust. They trust or don't trust. That's how it typically happens in the world of sales. So the idea is like, how do you get someone to trust you in a minute if they don't know you, never did business with you before, have no bait? How do you do that? So for the straight line, we use a combination of a few things, but one of them, the most powerful one, is called the Forrest Gump pattern. It's named after the movie Forrest Gump. And the reason is because there's a great scene in the movie when young Forrest is like 5 years old and he's going to school and he's waiting for the bus his first day, and the bus driver pulls up and Forrest is not that bright, right? And the driver pulls up and the door opens and he looks up at the driver and he freezes like a deer in the headlights. And the driver looks down and she's like, well, are you getting on? And he says, my mom had told me not to talk to strangers. And she looks down and she's like, well, this is the bus to school.
Yeah.
And Forrest just looks at her and he's like, what? That doesn't solve my problem. Like, I don't know you. I don't trust you. And this is like, so like this is sort of freezing. And then the bus driver starts to realize what she's dealing with because he's looking off at the space like Forrest does. And she's like, well, are you going to get on? And he looks at her and Forrest, in his infinite wisdom, says, well, my name is Forrest Gump. And she says, well, I'm Dorothy. I'm your bus driver. She goes, well, I guess we're not strangers anymore. And he gets on the freaking bus, right? So the point is, if you first of all, if you want someone to trust you, say, let me reintroduce myself. My name is so-and-so. I'm a senior vice president. Tell them who you are. Tell them what your name is. Tell them why they should trust you. Tell them what you do for your clients. Tell them what your core ethics are, your principles, your credentials. You got to tell someone interested. Let me just, if you might have met someone in the beginning of the sale, you go through a presentation, they forgot your name already.
Yeah.
They don't even know you in a lot of these cold calling or like, high volume selling propositions, right? So I say, let me just take a moment to reintroduce. I say, like, listen, let me ask you a question. If I'd known you for the last 3 or 4 years, if I've been making you money on a consistent basis, selling you piece of real estate after piece of real estate after piece of real estate, and now I can't do with another piece of real estate, you probably wouldn't be saying, let me think about it. You'd be saying, Jordan, let's sign on the dotted line. If everyone had made you money, am I right? They say, well, yeah, well, then I would. Say, exactly. You don't know me. I don't have a track record. Let me take a moment to reintroduce myself. My name, again, and now My name is Jordan, and I'll tell them who I am, tell them what I do for my clients, tell them what I stand for. And all of a sudden they're like, oh, wow. And I say, and as far as my company goes, and I'll talk about my company. And then I start raising their level of certainty for these three elements, the 3 10s, I call them, for the product, for yourself, the salesperson, and the company that stands behind the product. So that's the system that we use. And it's so powerful when you use it. It's almost shocking. People go from completely not trusting you to trusting you in like a minute.
And do some of these strategies with the straight line sales or just any form of selling or communication, now that we're in the pandemic era where everyone is doing things via video or Zoom and sometimes even audio, right? There's no body communication in that sense. Are there things that you would need to alter your strategy or do something different in that sense?
What do you think? Listen, this is the funniest question ever, because what did we do at Stratton? How did we make sales?
Phone calls.
Phone calls. The straight line is designed for distance selling. It was designed to overcome the problems of not being face-to-face with someone, because nothing happens on Wall Street face-to-face. It's all done over the phone. So the straight line system was the magic bullet that allowed people to get the same results they could normally get face-to-face by using body language, because what happens is that in the absence of body language, it collapses into tonality. Tonality becomes crucial. So we learn to use words and tonality that almost replaces the need for body language. And the straight line allows you to do that in a seamless way. It was designed for just that.
Got it. Well, this is really powerful stuff, Jordan. I really appreciate that. I wanted to know, you don't meet a lot of people that have gone through kind of these roller coaster rides that you have. And I'm curious to know, what are some of the truths that you've learned about life that looking back, you're like, okay, like all of these things have remained true for me in terms of happiness, in terms of fulfillment, purpose, whatever it might be for you?
Number one, you can't be half pregnant when it comes to ethics. You can't do things right most of the time and then have your little spots and then break the law. And it just doesn't work that way. Like, your ethical line will move. So one thing is, either you're ethical or you're not. You can't be partially ethical. That's one big lesson I learned. Number two is I've learned that good things take time. Like I've learned to sort of tame my desire for instant gratification. I believe the only way to get rich is quick, but that's not a get rich quick scheme. It's like, you work really hard and don't get the result. You work really hard, you don't get the result. You work really hard, you don't get the result. And suddenly the last piece of the puzzle falls into place and you're an overnight success after 2 years of hard work. So it's like about, willing to go through the stuff it takes to line up all the elements of success to get to that, that last point. Number three is that the road to success is not paved with failure. Like, lots of failures don't equal success. Like, in other words, the idea is success is not so much of a destination. It's what you bring to everything you do. You bring it to the table every single day, and that ultimate success is the sum of a lot of small successes along the way. You just can't be like, it's not, people have this thing, I'm just waiting for my Queen Mary to come in. I'm waiting for my magic ship it doesn't work like that. It's like all this, it's all that's the grind is important. It's like grinding it out every day, bringing success to what you do, and then I think along those lines also is like, that you can't, the idea of like that goals are your highest level of conquest is just like, it's really toxic to be a chronic goal setter. I set goals, but I have a vision on top of my goals. And my vision's much more important because,
what's the difference?
Your daily goals just what's that?
Oh, you're talking about daily goals versus long-term goals? Or what's the difference between vision and goals?
Well, goals have a beginning point and an end point, and there's the targets I aim for, versus a vision is much more long-term. It has to do with my entire life. My emotional connection is to my vision. I'm not emotionally connected to my goals. If you're emotionally connected to your goals, that, I'm going to have my happiness is based on achieving goals. You're going to live a very miserable life because you're going to be miserable until you get to your goal. Then you get to your goal, you're happy for a second. You're like, all right, what's next? You set a new goal. So you're like never happy. So like my goals are really just more about, am I going in the right direction or the wrong direction? I'm not emotionally attached to them. I let them go all the time and I set new ones if they're not working. My emotional attachment is to my long-term outcome. That's a big one.
Beautiful.
And also lastly is that it doesn't matter what. I think the biggest thing, there's one overarching thing that defines my life is that you're not the mistakes of your past. You're the resources and capabilities that you glean from your past mistakes. Like, the only way the past will equal your future is if you just choose to live in the past. You get stronger from your mistakes. You grow from your mistakes. So if you're willing to learn from your mistakes, you can become unstoppable. That's a big one.
Yeah, yeah. Except from someone that's actually done it and reinvented himself. So I appreciate your time, Jordan, on this. Where can people find you online? Where should we take people to?
Instagram, Wolf of Wall Street on Instagram. It's easy to find me. Just Google me. You can find me everywhere.
Yes, sir. All right. Thanks so much for tuning in, guys. Thanks so much, Jordan.
Take care, Sean. Bye-bye.
Beauty.